Hi, this is Bhartia, and welcome to the next episode of TFR Rap by Reckon. And today we have once again Rob Hirschfeld from AWS reinvent. Rob, what was the show like yesterday? Tell us a bit about that.
AWS reInvent continues to be just this mammoth show. It's spread over so many venues, it's impossible to actually get a full feel for how the show is going. I did manage to spend some time walking the floor, um, which is just crazy big, right? Every vendor, everybody is there. Pretty much, if you can imagine it in IT, they have a presence there from the SIs to the telcos to pretty much every software vendor that you can imagine. It's crazy from giant booths down to small people on the edges, and then Amazon themselves have a major area in the back where they're showing all sorts of projects and products and components and things like that. It's an incredible mix of technology all around.
I don't think it's fair to ask who was there. I think it may be much easier to say who was not there. Then you can just tell on your fingertips.
Yeah, I don't think Tesla had a booth, but even like the banks were there recruiting. I
Exactly,
saw
yeah.
Bloomberg and Capital One, both of them, trying to pull people in. They had big footprints with all this stuff. And then if you go back to the stage, right, it's everybody's people are just using Amazon and they pull people in and they talk about what they're doing. On the flip side, it was sort of interesting, though. I did have some hallway track and dinner conversations where somebody was saying, yeah, these data announcements from Amazon were, well, share your data with us and we'll provide this service. Share your data with us and we'll provide this service. And he was a major public corporation and was saying, I don't know that I want to share all of our customer interaction data, all of our cash register receipts, all of our you know logins and things like that with Amazon. And so it's a challenge with this. They're getting to such a footprint, and the need to share data to get these services is high. So people have to think about that.
That's also a bit challenging. Sometimes it happens earlier also. You might end up actually competing with Amazon in the market in some space because Amazon in so many different spaces that
Yeah.
it will become a strategic or trade secret challenge as well. That should you share your data with Amazon, where you're actually competing with them also in the market. I think it happened with Target and other companies where they kind of decided not to put their data or anything in an AWS cloud. So, but as we were talking yesterday about the ecosystem around AWS, is Amazon offering all the services? Because typically when we see, you see a very healthy, very booming, vendor ecosystem around a platform. Talk about that a bit. What do you see there?
Yeah, and that's the benefit of being able to walk around the floor. There is no doubt Amazon's ecosystem is very vibrant. And it's interesting because they do start to compete with products and vendors. I have some very good friends with Turbonomic, which have a very impressive integrated platform for analyzing the economics of infrastructure choices. And yet Amazon's is rolling into things that they do. And it's a head scratcher for everybody on how they eat the ecosystem. The same thing happened with VMware 15 years ago, where they were consistently adding features that compromise people in their market. It doesn't kill the market at all. It does make things a little bit more lively from a competitive perspective, and so you have to look at what you're trying to do. Of course, Amazon is going to be focused on Amazon services and expecting people to come all in from that perspective, and the people in the ecosystem are going to be much more likely to be multi-cloud, multi-infrastructure. And so I think this is the tension in market that every customer is going to have, every vendor is going to have, because it costs more money to support all of these different cloud infrastructures and on-premises infrastructures. And so these are the balances that we're facing in the industry today. And it's a strange market, right? 20 years ago, the idea that you would have four major operating systems, as it were, didn't seem like a good answer. That's why Microsoft sort of swept the market. I think we're going to look back on 2020 and say, wow, we have a lot of different APIs, protocols, and infrastructures, and the market's very fragmented. At the same time, having one winner is not a good answer either. So these are the questions that people are asking in the hallways at the conference, even though it's Amazon's show.
Yeah, in case of Microsoft, I may be wrong, but I just wanted your opinion there. If you look at Microsoft platform, okay, Windows is there, which Microsoft totally controls, but it has also created a huge, massive developer base. People are writing applications
Yeah.
against it. People are building hardware against it.
Well, this is where I think the opportunities are for people, right? Microsoft actually has some really significant development tool chain controls and platform pieces, right? Amazon really hasn't been able to get into the developer tool chain, even though they had some code analysis announcements in the last in this release set. It's not simple from that perspective, and it's where sort of where you engage with the customer, and we're seeing Amazon trying to get into the CI/CD pipeline much more and the source code control and things like that. That was one of the examples this executive was telling me. He's like, oh yeah, I just have to head over all of my source code for Amazon to analyze. And those tool chains, people, that's sensitive information, and that's one of the things. So jumping a little bit from that question, where I do think there's a lot of opportunity in the ecosystem for people to say, wait a second, I don't want one vendor to own all my information. Like I don't trust Amazon to analyze the bills for my Amazon services necessarily, and so there is a lot of opportunity around the Amazon ecosystem. I think if you look at something like Outposts, where you're putting in Amazon infrastructure, there's a lot. Been having a lot of conversations about that. We should do a session just on Outposts. It's worthy of its own 15-20 minute analysis session. I'm still collecting data, but that's a major announcement. It changes the playing field for on-premises infrastructure. So people need to watch out for that. But there's a question about how the data and the control plane of your infrastructure, and how you want that distributed and how you want it shared and who's going to own, how that everything gets wired together. There's benefits to get it from a single vendor, but there's also benefits to maintaining your own autonomy with that.
This question may be controversial, or it depends on how we look at it, but yes, convenience plays a big role where you don't have to build everything, so you do good. But there's something called ethics and morality also. That's also come into that. You are trusting a vendor, but first of all, does that I mean, okay, when you look at healthcare industry, there are HIPAA compliance are there, but here is no compliance. It's just your words against my word. You give me your data. This is the privacy policy or table of content. We will not. But those keep changing. So what do you see there? Because you did mention that people are talking about that. Do you think that should also become a critical piece as we're moving our data, sensitive information, business trade secrets to the cloud?
I think it's a very significant thing for people to think about. And one of the questions we have is, what's the morality and ethics of these situations? The same is true with the open source discussions that are circling around both Amazon, but the open source industry in general. Is, if you're using open source software and not paying for that software, you're not guaranteeing the sustaining aspects of that software. And so I do think that we often get into the situation where we want to talk about ethics and morality and do the right thing and pay money for services or protect services. And then on the flip side, we sort of get into the economic discussion. Well, it would be expensive to do that, or we can save some money, we can do this more efficiently. Time is really important. I got to go. And I think one of the broader issues that we have to look at as an industry is these very aggressive timelines, money targets, and things like that. How do we make that work and build a sustainable ecosystem? And so I think that ethics and morality are critical things for us to think about. To me, one of the ways to do that very convincingly, though, is to step back and look at it. If you have to put that in economic terms, put it in sustainability terms. That we have to be looking at the sustainability of everything we build. And as an industry, I don't think we do a very good job with that. And this is one of the hallway track conversations we have. We've been talking about gig economy and sustainability of the workers in the gig economy and paying fair wages, and building infrastructure that's resilient, even things like having phones that are disposable instead of repairable. These are ongoing conversations about how we sustain the industry. It's important even in data center infrastructure, where we look at what it takes to build new infrastructure and sustain that infrastructure. up and down the, this is the right question to be asking, and the right thing is asking the questions, and you have to be able to do it in the time and in the moment. It's really important, and that unfortunately is not something I've heard a lot of from the stages. Here is, what is the right sustainable thing to do from this conversation. It's much more about efficiency and integration and simplicity and ease of use, all important, but sometimes that's not the sustainable path.
I do see Microsoft talks about this a lot. They have kind of made this, as one of their selling marketing points these days. Google tries to stay mum on those topics, and so does Amazon. So different companies are picking up their fights, and they are trying to see what marketing and messaging that they want to push.
This is where Microsoft is a software company and Amazon is an infrastructure company.
When I talk about Microsoft, I meant Azure.
No, that's what I assumed you mean. But even so, Azure is still built by a software company.
Yeah,
and
there's a mindset. You're right. Yeah.
They have a software mindset. Amazon is much more of a services managed. It's an infrastructure managed infrastructure company. And that's, I've had a lot of conversations in the going around, and that's ultimately Amazon is selling you hardware, right? And things they put on top of it are monetizing the hardware, many times. So if you think about it, that's what's going on, right? They want you to be paying for that server that they bought, many times over, and they're radically successful at doing that. And they've convinced the industry that that's better for you to do that than it is to buy that server and you monetize it 4 or 5 or 6 times. It's been a fascinating world for that, and service and convenience are the things that they're selling, and that's the overriding message.
Thank you, Rob, for giving us kind of what you see there in the show floor and what is going on in the AWS ecosystem, especially in terms of vendors. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Swap.